The Chinese economy is on the brink of collapse in just a matter of days.
The Chinese economy is hours away from a complete collapse.
China's economy is only minutes away from a total apocalyptic collapse.
The Chinese economy will completely collapse within a few seconds.
The entire Chinese economy will completely collapse by the time you finish watching this video.
China is still struggling with deflation, which has been rampant for over a year. It's also why the US economy has been growing faster than China's year on year, which puts us far ahead of them. The gap in GDP growth between the US and China is getting wider again, meaning China is not able to catch up to our economy. If this keeps going, China will never catch up to the US.
Chinese economy is near its complete collapse. 500,000 bank accounts with more than $6 billion USD is frozen and the people are left in the dark.
And this is going to haunt China for the rest of the 21st century. The 21st century will not belong to China. It should and will belong to the United States.
China just built 1 billion empty houses for nobody. These were straight up ghost cities. But I saw them everywhere. I saw them in Hunan in the south of China. I saw them in central China. I saw expansive, behemoth cities with nothing. Boulevards, 6-lane roads going nowhere. I saw metropolises so large that they were damning proof of the ticking time bomb at hand. I saw the most insane structures and monuments to nothing. So why? Why won't they stop building this massive waste? They could house every single person in the country twice over. Now again, I'm gonna ask you, you're probably wondering, right? Why? Why are they still building these? Your real estate crisis is many, many, many magnitudes worse than the USA. I'm talking, you have 1 billion empty homes. That's kind of bad, isn't it? It's a disaster that has been a long time coming. Millions of people have seen their life savings go down the toilet, and for some, it's worse. If you're in the West, you might be shocked to find out how poor China actually is. And let me tell you, it is dire. China's per person GDP is only $12,556 a year. Compare that with the USA's $80,035, and you might start to see through China's propaganda. The USA is actually a full-on luxurious socialist utopia.
Because when it comes to investment, they have no other choice. Their stock market has been notoriously volatile, and whilst the global economy has rocketed past pre-pandemic levels and has beaten almost all previous highs, China hasn't even reclaimed their 2008 pre-GFC highs.
So when you're saying that China has 10 years to go,
at most.
What do you mean by that?
They don't have the young people to go consumption-led. They're completely dependent on the U.S. Navy to access international trade. They are the most vulnerable country in the world right now. And based on how things go with Russia, we're looking at a significant amount of raw materials falling off the map, specifically food and energy. And the Chinese are the world's largest importer of both of those things. So there's no version of this where China comes through looking good. And the challenge for the rest of us is to figure out how do we, in as smooth and quick as a process as possible, figure out how we can get along without them. Because they are going away. And they're going away this decade for certain.
Well, if you say they're going away, clearly they're not just going to lay down. They're
no, they're
going to try to adjust.
Yeah, they'll die.
Right? But
very ugly for the Chinese. And you get a deindustrialization collapse and a famine that kills 500 million people in under a year. And the Chinese know this. They can only push so hard. They're still food importers. They're still dependent on the United States. They're still energy importers.
And what is their plan?
The Chinese?
Yeah, do we have any idea of what their plan to get out of this is?
You try to cut a deal with a country that can help you out, but the only country that could do that is the United States. And the sort of strategic surrender that the Americans would require.
The skyscrapers are empty, the streets are without traffic, and chilling silence emanates throughout the area. These are the scenes of China's ghost cities. These streets resemble abandoned or evacuated cities from a zombie or nuclear apocalypse movie. The whole city feels like a post-apocalyptic space station straight out of a science fiction movie. The whole city is one big investment plan gone wrong. The combination of high taxes and poor construction meant that still nobody wanted to live there. And this is a nationwide problem. In China, there are 65 million empty units, which is enough to house the entire population of France. These empty units could even home at least 25% of its homeless population of 300 million.
America and China are separated by the Pacific Ocean, one shaped by freewheeling capitalism characterized by a market-driven economy and democratic governance, the other ruled by an authoritarian communist party which maintains tight control over the state's economic and political life. Both are the world's largest economies, but one is surging while the other is stumbling. A number of structural weaknesses have been dragging down China's prospects. Optimism is dimming among Chinese youth. The Chinese stock market is tanking, and foreign direct investment is in free fall as global businesses seek alternatives. Meanwhile, the US is doing really well, with the most dynamic economy and the fastest growth in the G7, a group of the 7 biggest advanced economies. Inflation is down, while jobs, real wages, and productivity are going up. It's impressive how the US has not only maintained, but also extended its dominance over other developed countries. In 1990, America made up 40% of the G7's nominal GDP. Today, it makes up 58%. In terms of purchasing power parity, PPP, the increase is smaller but still significant, going from 43% of the G7's GDP in 1990 to 51% now. America's outperformance has translated into wealth for its people. In PPP terms, income per person in America was 24% higher than in Western Europe in 1990. Today, it is about 30% higher. It was 17% higher than Japan in 1990. Today, it is 54% higher. Compared to China, it is 241% higher. America's economy has grown by about 8% in real terms. During that same time, China's economic growth is slowing, from 8% annually a decade ago to a new normal of just over 4% annually, predicted by the end of this decade. These aren't the only red flags pointing to China's economy slowing down. There are more. China is suffering a double whammy of weak demand at home and abroad. Both exports and imports have fallen sharply since 2021. Adding to the dismal economic mood, people have borrowed less money, marking the lowest reading since late 2009.
So in this video, we're going to take yet another look at China's economic crisis. All the elements of China's wider economic crisis interact with this fact. The deflationary crisis, for example, is in part because Chinese consumers just don't have enough disposable income. The property crisis has been partly caused by the fact that Chinese households don't have enough money, so have to take out massive and apparently unsustainable mortgages. Similarly, China's youth unemployment rate, which the CCP actually stopped publishing data about because it got so bad, is in part a story about educational inflation. But it's also because China's domestic economy doesn't have the strength to create enough jobs. After months of stubbornly refusing to change course despite some pretty bad data, late last month the CCP finally caved. In the immediate aftermath, Chinese stocks slumped, with the CSI falling by about 6% and the Seng Index falling by nearly 10%. And other data in the past few weeks have looked equally gloomy. In late September, for instance, data was published showing industrial profits down 17% year on year, and Chinese consumer confidence has continued to plummet. This means that Beijing knew and still knows that the deflationary crisis is worse than expected.